Alright, what's going on, guys? So thank you for tuning in. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I wanted to list out the 12 things that I hate about my WRX. Now you're probably thinking that this is going to be like any other video where people talk about the things I hate about their car, and chances are you're right, but these are some of the things that I have personally experienced, and I actually took time to kind of list these out. So I broke down the items into three categories. One is things I absolutely hate, or things that must be addressed as soon as possible. Two, nitpicky things, things that will eventually get addressed but I can live with. And three, extra nitpicky things where I'm probably expecting too much out of a $30,000 car, but I'm going to nitpick anyway. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So number one is the sloppy shifting. So I know what people are thinking, oh, if you're so worried about the shifting, you should have just gotten an STI with a better transmission. Well, no, that's not the point here. The point is that I shouldn't have to purchase additional parts like the shift gate and the brass bushing so that my shift knob wouldn't wobble as much. So it makes no sense, and I know a lot of people will agree with me on this one. The good thing is that there are ways to fix this issue or to address it, but the downside is that you're gonna have to spend more money. Number two is the clutch squeak and throwout bearing. So I don't know what caused my clutch to squeak. My car has 25,000 miles on it. There's no reason why the clutch should be damaged. I've been driving a manual transmission for the last 12 years of my life, and the entire issue with the throwout bearing, it's just so loud when you first started up, and honestly it's a little embarrassing. I read everywhere online that the throwout bearing issue has been solved or resolved for the 2018 models, but I have a 2018 and it's still here, so I don't know what the whole deal is with that. Number three on the things I hate about the car is the soft paint. So I don't know if you guys can see those little speckles right there on the hood, but those are spots that I touched up with the paint pen. I know a lot of people would agree with me when I say that Subaru's paint is probably one of the lowest quality on the market. I mean, my fiance's 2013 Corolla has better paint than this car. I do have a clear bra on the hood and on the front bumper, but if I could go back in time, I'd probably just do a ceramic coat. And number four on the top things that I absolutely hate about the car is the Rev Hang on the dreaded stock tune. So I got pro-tuned a couple thousand miles into owning the car, but I still remember how bad the stock tune was. I remember I'd floor the car and it'll get up there pretty quickly, but anything after 4,000, 4,500 RPMs would just fade away. But before you shift it into the next gear, I remember it'll just sit there for a couple seconds, and that's the dreaded Rev Hang that everyone always talked about. And honestly, I never thought it would bother me until it happened to me a few times. So this is why I got all my parts together and I got pro-tuned right after. So now that I got the four things that I absolutely hate about the car out of the way, next up are the four nitpicky things that I found with the car. Number one is the random rattles. I swear, every month of owning this car, I find a new rattle. I don't know where it's coming from. All I know is that it comes from either the headrest or the passenger side of the car. Again, it's not a huge issue. I'll probably spend more time fixing it one of these days or finding the rattle, but it doesn't bother me too much, but it's more of an annoyance at this point. The second thing on my nitpicky list is the sound system. The sound system sucks. You can try to mess with the settings all you want, but you're not going to get bass out of this thing. The head unit is okay. I actually kind of like it. It's pretty responsive, but I know that it's not putting out enough power, so that means that you're not going to get too much bass or any depth to the sound. Again, not a huge deal. I'll probably just leave this one as is and just listen to my exhaust. So next up, I know not everyone's gonna agree, but this is purely my opinion, but number three is I think that the seats are too big. So I remember in autocross, anytime I take a huge curve, let's say I'm taking a right curve, I remember my body shifting all the way to the left, and I know that's not a good thing considering, well, one, it's dangerous, and two, it kind of impacts your overall driving experience. So eventually I do want to get this addressed. I want to get some better seats that's made for my size, but for now I think it'll do. I mean, I don't mind the leather, and I actually like the heated seats. And number four, to go back to the clutch issue, is that the clutch is really soft compared to the older WRXs. So I've been in a 2015 and a 17, and they both have seemed to have stiffer clutches than this car. Eventually I'll upgrade to something better, something that can better handle the power of the car. Now that I got the nitpicky things out of the way, it's time for the extra nitpicky things. The reason I labeled these extra nitpicky is because I know that I'm not driving an $80,000 BMW or Lexus or any luxury car like that. I understand that every car has their own issues, but these are just some of the things that I picked out for my specific car. And number one, I'm not sure how many people this applies to, but for me, I can't find the perfect driving position. Ever since I got the car, I've had to adjust at least one thing every time I drive, whether that's the steering wheel or the height of the seats, how far back the seats are. I just can't figure out the sweet spot, and I've had this car for almost 3 years. It's not necessarily a Subaru thing, but it's just something I noticed with this specific car. And number two on the extra nitpicky things is the doors don't auto lock. So I know that this feature is not only for automatic cars because my 2008 Volkswagen GTI that I had back in the day had this feature. As soon as you hit 10 miles per hour, the doors would auto lock. You know, it's one of those just nice to have features. There's really nothing you can do about this. Now, I know a lot of people will agree with me on this, but number three is the overall fear that something is broken or will break in your car. You can't completely prevent your car from blowing up, you know, whether that's stock or if you're modded. If it's gonna blow, it's gonna blow. There's nothing you can do about it. But there are very basic things you can do to prolong the engine of the car, and that's as simple as checking your oil and all the other fluids and, you know, not wide open throttling at every single light. I used to be a lot more paranoid about the car to the point where I didn't even want to drive it. I mean, I still glance at the access port every now and then, but you know, overall, I do try to enjoy the car. I mean, you paid for it, you paid a lot of money to modify it, so you might as well enjoy it, right? And lastly, some people might think this is a good thing, but for me, it's kind of another annoyance. It's the stigma that you always want to race. Every now and then, it's nice to do a couple pulls with some random car on the street, but most of the time, I just want to cruise and get to my destination safely. I learned to respect all builds, but you 328i BMW drivers, man, you guys love to start races with people. So now I'm a little curious. Comment down below on what kind of car tends to initiate races with you, and my feelings won't be hurt if you say WRX. So those were the 12 things that I hate about my 2018 Subaru WRX. It's easy for people to expect the quality of an $80,000 car, but you're just not going to get that with a $30,000 sedan. You know, aside from the first four that I mentioned, I absolutely love this car. It's a practical sedan that I could take almost anywhere, and it didn't take too much money to make some power. Anyway, if you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.